Welcome back. Meet Biggie. Biggie is an 8-year-old spayed female dog who was diagnosed with chronic renal failure a year ago. She came back today because of inappetence and drooling. She seemed to have a difficulty in eating. With a thorough oral exam, she was found to have oral ulcerations all over her oral cavity, which is an expected part of the pathology of her renal problem. Honestly, patients with renal failure die not from the renal problem but due to the complications of the disease. Not being able to eat due to oral ulcers lead to anorexia and malnutrition. In cases such as Biggie's, what can we do to make sure that she gets her food, that she would be able to have her medications? That's the primary premise and indication of enteral hyperalimentation. What is this, and why are we discussing this? Let's find out. Enteral hyperalimentation is a safe, easy, practical, physiologic, and well-tolerated method of providing nutrition to patients with a functional gastrointestinal tract. The routes can be through oral, nasogastric, through pharyngostomy, esophagostomy, gastrostomy, gastroduodenostomy, and yes, there's another one. There's a lot. And enterostomy. If you notice, the routes start from the most rostral, moving caudally. Enteral hyperalimentation is designed like that to conform with wherever the defect may be. If the reason why the animal is not eating is because of the oral cavity, for example, in Biggie's case wherein she has oral ulcers, we choose the digestive anatomical structure caudal to the oral cavity to be the route for enteral hyperalimentation. However, there is no perfect procedure. The rule with enteral hyperalimentation is the farther oral food is delivered, oral meaning away from the mouth, the less efficient the assimilation and digestion of nutrients, and the greater care necessary to choose the food that we could give. Remember, as the food travels from the mouth down to the esophagus, the stomach, and the small intestines, it becomes more finer and more digestible. You should be able to mimic this with the food you are going to administer to a specific route. Meaning, if you are going to give food through an esophagostomy route, the food should not need to be chewed because it should have passed the oral cavity already. If you are giving nutrition through a enterostomy, the food should be very well pre-digested already, as if it just came from the stomach, because any biochemical process that happens in the stomach cannot be replicated in the intestines. Enteral hyperalimentation is indicated to any animal with overt or impending protein-calorie malnutrition. Animals with hypermetabolic conditions such as severe burns, sepsis, trauma, post-surgical stress, and cancer could also benefit through this method. This is also considered for patients presenting with chronic anorexia or malnutrition, or those you are anticipating 3 to 5 days of anorexia, example, after you do a gastrointestinal surgery. Altered mental status in patients with head trauma or those who underwent brain surgery can also prevent or affect the self-feeding. Let's now discuss the common routes done on our patients. Nasogastric tubes are placed through the nostrils with its tip reaching the stomach mucosa. By its name, nasogastric, going through the nose to the stomach. It is easy to place with no need of anesthetic induction. Relatively, this route is well tolerated by patients. A big disadvantage for nasogastric placement is the small tube size which could go into the nose, because this limits the kind of diet that you can give. If you are familiar with the specialty diets that are commercially available, which are liquid in consistency, and I mean liquid, they're like water, they can be easily accommodated through this route. However, canned diets, which are later blended, can cause blockage of the tube. Bigger tube sizes can accommodate a wider variety of diets. Now, nasogastric tubes tend to continually irritate the nasal mucosa of the patients, triggering the sneeze reflex, which makes it prone to premature removal by the patients themselves. For pharyngostomy tubes, these are inserted through the junction of the intrapharyngeal ostium and the laryngopharynx. The oropharynx can easily permit bigger tube sizes up to 24 French, which means it can permit more types of diets. However, the advantages stop there. It needs general anesthesia for placement. It is contraindicated for patients with esophageal disorders. It is more difficult to place because of the amount of soft tissue that you need to carefully dissect through to get the tube in. It is also found to cause partial airway obstruction, gagging, coughing, and aspiration. Pharyngostomy tubes have been replaced with esophagostomy tubes to address its multiple disadvantages and complications. Let's find out more about esophagostomy in the next videos.